So I want to start off today with Edwin Leskin talking about remarketing and some online advertising tips, and take it away.
Cool.
Thanks for being here, Edwin.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure to be here. Yeah, excellent. I'll go ahead and start my stopwatch. I got 10, 15 minutes, something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
15, definitely.
15, definitely. All right, excellent. Well, yeah, it's fantastic to be here. I'll go ahead and let Amber in. Yeah, today we're going to be talking about remarketing, which is a digital advertising tool that is pretty ubiquitous across all of the digital advertising platforms that exist, because it's very effective and it makes a lot of sense. And so I think every single social media platform that has an advertising component, as well as Google AdWords, now has it. The last one that didn't have it was LinkedIn, and they literally put it in like 3 days ago. It just popped up while I was doing a LinkedIn campaign, so it's in there. And one thing that I will say is I know that not everybody that's going to be watching or is going to be in the webinar is doing digital advertising. At the same time, the concepts behind why it is effective can still be good for your mental framework and thinking about strategy of how you're going to market, even if you're not using digital advertising. And we'll get into also why it's cool to know about, even if you aren't doing digital advertising right now, but that you think you might in the future. Cool, so let's talk about it.
I'm just going to tap here.
Thank you. So what is remarketing? So there's a person, and then they go to your website. Somehow you get them there, or they find out about you through direct or through search. They go to your website where you have a couple tags installed, a couple pieces of code, and then they're automatically collected in a list. And those tags pertain to the platforms that you made them on. And then once they're in a list, you can show them advertisements. And hopefully they make a purchase or become aware of your brand, aware of an initiative, and become a customer, or somebody that's going to follow you around. And the cool thing is that you've seen it, right? And it's kind of annoying when you've seen it, probably, because what we have here is an example and the people on the live stream can't see it, but they'll know it. It's like when you go to Amazon, and Amazon is the best example of it because they are super, super aggressive with their remarketing. You go to Amazon, you look at that pair of shoes. It's funny because that's always my example, and that's what I actually found. You look at that pair of shoes, and then you go to Facebook, or you're searching around the web, and then you see that exact pair of shoes just asking to be bought. So that is what remarketing is. Before I go further, I do want to say that whenever I bring it up in webinars or talks, people always are kind of like, "Ooh, isn't that creepy? That you're tracking me around the web." And some people do have a little bit of like some sort of moral or ethical conflict with this kind of digital tracking. But at the same time, these are people that have been to your website. They already know who you are. So, you'll just have to decide for yourself whether there's a moral conflict there. Thank you. Okay, so how it works. All the platforms on the left have remarketing. AdWords, Facebook, we've got a little Instagram down there because Instagram's ad platform is like Facebook's little buddy. Twitter, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. And they all have very similar setups. The nomenclature, like the verbiage that they use to describe what remarketing is, will be different in each one. Every single platform has to come up with its own little, thing to call it. But when you are in the audience creation tool or you're in your ad creation tool and you're looking at your targeting options, you will see, something that pertains to site visits. And then the first time you do it, they'll give you a piece of code. You install it on your website. If you have WordPress, it's going to be a super easy integration for most of these platforms. There are existing plugins that are, very, very simple to set up. If you don't have WordPress, it's generally just as simple as putting it in putting in the header, just putting it anywhere in the main body of your website, and then you're good to go. After it's installed, people that come to the website that are also on the pertaining platform. So if somebody has a Facebook account and they're active on Facebook and then they come to your website, Facebook, can track them back to the platform. And then they're installed into a list. Now, it's not like actually their personal information, their names and stuff. Facebook keeps that confidential. But at the same time, most of these platforms do have a way that you can look at the demographics of the people that they're collecting into lists, which is cool because you can get interesting insights about who are the Facebook users that are also interested in my website and what do they look like. So there's a couple tools there that you can do. So after it's installed, they get collected into lists, and then you can generate audiences, and you're good to go. So the functionality is identical. Google did it first, and everyone has copied it since. And any new digital advertising platform that comes out will continue to do it because it just makes a whole lot of sense.
We have one question coming
Yeah.
over the Facebook live stream, and
Absolutely.
it is this the same as cookies?
Yeah, I mean, this is, it's similar to cookies, right? But if somebody has cookies turned off, it won't, I don't believe that it affects most of these remarketing codes. But yeah, it's a similar kind of idea. One thing that I will say is that certain industries that have very, very privacy, kind of like privacy sensitive audiences, and have like really extensive terms of service and privacy language on their website, need to watch out, because by installing this, you could end up potentially offending some users. We had one client at the agency, and it was a module, or like a platform where you can build websites on, and that audience was very, very sensitive about privacy and really didn't like that they had installed tracking. So yeah, how much does it cost? That's the cool thing, Linda, and that's what we'll get into on this next slide. Some things to think about, and that's the last one there. There's no cost associated with setting up the tags. So on each of these platforms, you can generate the tags even if you've never run an ad on the system, and you can put it on your website. If you're running Google AdWords, or if you have Google AdWords set up and analytics set up, those tags already exist on your website and can be just activated, most likely. So there's no cost associated, which is awesome, because it means that if you think that in 12 months or 24 months you might have a need to like use this system, you can go ahead and set it up now, and you can just leave it there, and it will start collecting people. Now, it can only collect people in most systems in between 90 and 260 days is kind of like the range. But at the same time, there's no reason not to get the stuff up. Then if you want to use it, it's there, and there's no cost associated with it. So some things to think about. You can make an audience from any page on your website or a collection of pages. And I should have mentioned that you can exclude pages as well. So, I mean, just let that sink in. That's a tremendous amount of versatility, tracking people that have been to just, very, very targeted areas of your website, or that have gotten through a couple steps of a process, but haven't gotten to the last process. And these are people that have actually been to your website, unlike so much digital advertising, which is people that have never heard of you, which can be good and it can be bad. But it's good when they are interested in you and you acquire a new customer. It's bad when they're not interested in you and you don't acquire a new customer. That doesn't play here. These are people that have been there, they know your brand, they've been to the website already, right? So the possibilities are pretty endless, right? And I'm going to kind of skip to this last one first that I have on here, and you guys on the live stream can't see it. But any way that you think that it could be useful to take people that have been to a place on your website and to show them another place on your website, this is what it'll do for you, right? So let's go through a couple different examples, and then we can kind of dive into some of them a little bit. So let's say that you're running an event and you've been driving traffic through, you've got your partners, and you've got your PR, and you've got your press talking about the event. You're putting it down on social media. Maybe you're even boosting some posts or doing event RSVP ads on Facebook, and people are going to the website. And your event is 3 months away, and every single month you have a ticket price increase. And that ticket price increase is good because it encourages people to go and make a purchase. There's the scarcity mindset, and it creates an urgency around what they need to do. So when your ticket deadline is coming up, you can take people that have been to, directly to the part of your website that's about that event, and you can show advertisements to them on the social media platforms or on AdWords, about that ticket price increase. That is like, a core tactic that we recommend for all the events that we work with, and it just is effective. So let's look at the next one. An e-commerce site could show people discounts for a product they looked at, and that's pretty loose. I mean, it could be anybody. If you're selling something online and people have gotten to it and looked at it, and then you want to distribute a code or a discount or a special kind of offer, you can show it to just those people, right? Just the people that have been to this one space. So you're not having to blast out all over social media a discount that's going to hurt your margins, and instead you're able to just target it down to that group that's been to that space. Or maybe you've got a couple products. I know a friend that uses remarketing on his t-shirt and fashion company, and whenever they need to kind of get inventory gone, when a new season comes around, they just target the people that have been to those pages in the past month, and then they just hit them with deep discount codes. And again, it's very, very effective. So the next one is, let's say that a business is expanding its service offerings, right? You have done one thing in your business, you're going to go ahead and do another thing in the B2B or B2C space. You can basically take your customers that have been to that one space in your website and show them or introduce them to this new product, right? Or this new service offering. Let's look at the next one. I like this one. A company can do content marketing related to their field and then track who read it and then sell them on a product. And like that is probably the most consistent, usage that in the agency we are doing with clients, because people want to read content or they want to watch videos, and that's a good way to get people over to your website. And so you track the people that have been there, and then you start talking to them about product, because they probably just came and they read and they engaged and they learned a little bit. And maybe they danced around the website, but you're going to go ahead and say, hey, we're those guys that showed you that cool thing. Now go ahead and look at the stuff that we actually want to sell you. And then on a couple platforms, especially on Facebook, and this is one of my favorite things to do, is you can create lookalike audiences, where the platform is going to find out, whatever audience you create a lookalike from, the platform is going to find out people that it thinks are similar to the people in the audience. So what is the most qualified possible audience that you have? It's probably customers, right? And what's the second most qualified audience that you have? It's probably people that have been around your website, that are already there, that are already engaged, or who maybe made it through a couple processes on your website and have gone pretty deep. Creating a lookalike audience from your web traffic is a really, really cool way to introduce yourself to new customers that are going to be relevant, because they're based on such a qualified thing, which is somebody going to your website and actually caring, actually doing something. And so those are kind of the examples that I had here, and it's pretty cool. We keep on, basically in any client that we can convince them to do this, that there's doing digital advertising, we find new and fresh and interesting ways to apply this. Are there any questions coming through? I think we got Kat.
Oh,
cool,
Kat.
Kat.
Open up that. It doesn't look like it right now, but I'll go ahead and open up to everybody. If you have questions about remarketing or social media advertising, you can chat them in right now. Mm-hmm. And we're glad to answer any of them. So if anybody, like I said, has some sort of clarification they need about how to set this up, or they have questions about running their own campaigns in this way, please feel free to let us know. And Edwin's glad to answer those today.
That's right. Always glad to answer them. Yeah, I'm trying to think about maybe some other applications that I've seen recently at the agency. Let's look. Okay, how difficult can the process be, and what would be the first step for this? And then we had, so the ad budget is for creating the ads. Yes, your ad budget is just going to go when you actually create your advertisements and send it out to them. I'm going to go ahead and talk to John. It's really different for each platform. And once you get the tags, once you get the code, it's very, very easy to implement it on your website. You either, if you have WordPress, use a plugin. And I think actually Shopify may have a plugin as well. Maybe even Squarespace does these days. But if you need your webmaster to do it, or the person that controls your website, it's going to be a very, very simple and elementary process. The more difficult part is finding out where these social media platforms have stocked this feature away. And in most of them, you're going to want to look for their kind of tailored audiences is what Twitter calls it. Custom audiences is what Facebook calls it. They'll try to direct you and be like, hey, you can track stuff on your website, but sometimes it's a little bit hidden. It really depends on what platform you're on. If you just type in the name of your platform and then remarketing, you will into Google, you'll immediately get the resource that you need to do a quick install.
We have another question about when creating a lookalike audience, what's the best tool to nail down what that audience is?
Allison, I'm not sure if I completely understand the question. Sarah, the best tool to nail down what the audience is?
Yeah, so with the lookalike audience, could you just explain how they're creating that audience?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I think some people don't realize you have to upload your emails and all of that stuff. Can you just explain what it is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Because I don't think, Allison, and feel free to chat in and clarify, but you really don't have to nail down what the audience is. You upload emails of an existing audience that you have, and it creates an audience similar to them.
So on Facebook, particularly, any audience that you create or you save, or a list of emails or your web traffic, you can create a lookalike audience from. Facebook automatically finds people that it thinks are like your people, and you can vary the size in between 2 and 10 million persons. Now, what you said is interesting, because what you should do, even if you have the smaller audience of 2 million people, is you should put a couple interests layered over top of that when you create your ad, and a couple, demographic things that like their age range. Like if you know that your customers are in between 32 and 55, restrict it down to 32 and 55 to filter out a little bit of, Facebook finding people that maybe aren't the right target audience. In general, it's pretty good, but I do generally recommend that people layer over a couple core demographics, a couple core interests, just to focus it down a little bit. And then you'll be good to go. Absolutely good to go.
Awesome. So the other question we have is from Trace, and it's, will this session actually show the steps? I understand tags and costs can vary, but will be shown the how of setting up remarketing? And I want to just say that we can't really show that because it's going to be different depending on the advertising platform that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So Edwin's touched on, numerous social media platforms, Google AdWords. So the actual process of setting up remarketing inside of your ad campaigns is basically unique to each site. But definitely, Trace, if you'd like, you can feel free to email Edwin or
totally. Please.
You can see his email on the screen right now. Or mine is just Sarah, SARAH, at jbmediagroupllc.com. And I'm glad to send you some resources where you can read about the exact steps for setting this up on different systems. If you'll just let me know basically which advertising system you're using, I can send you some resources.
Definitely. And Trace, it's just, we were talking, it's the functionality is so similar across the platforms that it made more sense to focus on all the platforms and say they can all do this thing than to dive into and then you click on this button, then you click on this button in terms of setting it up, because each of them have it stocked away a little bit differently. But once it's up and running, it's gonna feel and function the same way across all the platforms. Yeah.
And most of the ad managers do, I think, provide a lot of instruction inside their system.
Oh, they do. They definitely
for
do.
the setup. So they're trying to make it as simplistic as possible. And the biggest thing that you run into is adding those codes to your website if they need to be added.
And the platforms are pretty good with that too, about knowing that an advertiser might not be somebody that has as much insight into the back end of a website. And so they have really detailed instructions that they kind of cook into there. So, yeah.